If there's anything in the world that is universally known for being adorable and cuddly, it's bunnies and rabbits. Our modern culture is pretty good at taking sweet, sincere things and turning them into nightmares. But I can't remember a single moment of bunnies getting that horrifying treatment. Oh, Jesus fuck, I remember! I remember! Okay, so maybe rabbits aren't entirely immune to this treatment, but when we do reinvent the Peter Cottontail wheel, they usually have a modicum of dignity, or failing that, a level of fun. But sometimes they don't have any of those things. On initial inspection, 2017 indie action-adventure Overgrowth appeared to be going down that road. Developed by four-person team Wolfire over the course of 9 damn years, Overgrowth is meant to be a spiritual successor to Lugaru, a game that same team made in 2005. The universe of both Overgrowth and Lugaru is full of Redguard-style animals, all outfitted in armor and wielding swords and shields and whatnot. And that universe is a genuinely interesting one to learn about. The game itself, however, leaves a lot to be desired. Overgrowth begins with you, Turner, a bunny warrior with a mysterious past. You've come to a tiny hamlet to escape the violent demons that haunt you and to live a life at peace with the world. Of course, it takes all of about 5 seconds to find out that things are not so peaceful as they seem, and you head down the rabbit hole of the history of violence that surrounds this world. Actually, that was one of the more jarring parts of the story of Overgrowth in my eyes. You literally go down the road to teach some rude bandits a lesson, and 5 minutes later, you're traveling across the ocean and attempting to disassemble a massive slaving operation. It's like if I went to bop the dog on the nose with a newspaper for pissing on the rug, and 5 minutes later I've flown to Bolivia to defeat a drug smuggling operation run by German shepherds. It's a little unnerving. But whatever. At least the developers don't bullshit you with 2 hours of helping your neighbor clear his basement of giant rats before you get to the good stuff. Of course, in the world of Overgrowth, giant rats are actual anthropomorphic rats, but that's neither here nor there. Each level is both tedious and brief, generally falling into one of 2 categories: fighting and platforming. The combat system in Overgrowth is pretty rudimentary. Left click to attack, right click to throw enemies. You can perform jump kicks and throw knives, and even pick up the occasional sword or spear for when you're looking to kill your opponents really quick. The combat isn't bad per se, there just isn't that much to it. And when you've done 3 levels in a row where the only purpose is to beat up some guards or smack around a boss or 2, you wish there was more variety to how the game plays. Well, there's an option for stealth, but outside of a few obvious moments, I didn't find myself using it all that much. I might get rid of one enemy from the shadows before his buddies notice me, and I start to desperately jump kick my way to a better vantage point. The line of sight on these bad guys is crazy, by the way. They can spot you coming from further away than most stealth-based enemies I've seen in a long time, so make sure you've got plenty of cover. Most levels will take you about 5 minutes or so. The level loads, you spot and kill half a dozen bad guys, and the next level loads. Rinse and repeat. It isn't until the combat ends and the platforming begins that you realize just how good you had it when you were stabbing dogs and rats. The platforming in Overgrowth is painful. As I mentioned before, you play a rabbit, so it goes without saying that one of your core abilities is a powerful jump. And jump powerfully you shall, my friends. Too powerfully, in fact. I think it was Hobbs the Tiger who pointed out years ago how hard it is to change direction in midair, and Overgrowth is here to prove that to you. It isn't always clear how far of a jump you're going to need, so hopping from one platform to another becomes a series of experiments and trial and error, and you need to get it just right because A ton of these platforming sections take place in high up places where a single slip up means your death, and B, rabbits apparently cannot swim. And the game will remind you of this each and every time your sorry cotton ass slips into 3 feet of water. There's wall running and the initial hints at some parkour action, which is ambitious as hell, particularly for a 4-person studio, but Overgrowth just doesn't pull it off. The controls feel far too light and floaty for a game that wants to have that level of physical impact. There's no weight to your actions, no satisfying oomph as you jump, or solidity when you land. I will give Wolfire's game full credit for the ambition of the project they've been working on for so long. The animations are pretty good, and the worlds are varied and interesting, even if there really isn't much to them. Clearly the developers love the world and mythology that they've created for themselves, and I respect that. 9 years is a lot of time to work on the same world, and Wolfire clearly had a lot of fun coming up with their world's history, religions, and even social mores. That's a hell of a lot more than many indie developers are capable of. But as a game, Overgrowth just doesn't pull it off. It's too straightforward and oftentimes tedious for me to recommend with any level of sincerity. The combat's bland and the platforming is irritating. Also, I don't always bring up the price tag on games unless I think it's particularly significant, and I would say that this is one of those times. Overgrowth currently retails on Steam at $30, and no. Just no. This is not a $30 game. It's not even close to a $30 game. The story doesn't justify it, the mechanics and gameplay don't justify it, and the amount of time you spent playing the game, probably 2 to 3 hours, doesn't justify it. There are many worse games out there than Overgrowth, but not many with that high a price tag. I'm not generally the sort of reviewer that goes that deeply into how much a game costs or is worth, but in this case, that's a detail I just can't ignore. I would say that this game needs a little more time in the oven, but it's been in the oven for nearly a fucking decade. This is not good work. The world building and story of Turner the Ninja Bunny is charming, but the unreliable controls, bare-bones level design, mediocre combat system, and absurd price tag make this an indie title worth overlooking.
If Daddy don't sink a little drinky, Daddy gets sad and blue. Sneak a little drinky, sneakity-doo. Sneak a little drinky past you. Sneak a little drinky, sneakity-doo. Sneak a little drinky past you.